balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, is anybody, we're a few, about a week or so, roughly. We're a few time units, I don't know what you want to call them, away from the fact that Trump has been elected president of the United States for 2025 and beyond. Excuse me for just a second. Got to open up the door for the little kitty. It does bother me when the cats do that. Anyway, so anybody have any buyer's remorse? Anybody have any buyer's remorse? We're almost 2 weeks out, according to Nana, my mathematical genius extraordinaire over on Rumble. Nana says it's been 13 days. So here's the thing, folks. The left, at least on all the socials, all I keep seeing is these posts, hey, you MAGA people, you're really going to regret what you got. You're going to regret. Anybody have any regrets yet? I don't have any regrets. I got nothing. They're all like, oh my gosh, look at who he picked for his cabinet. Oh, he says he's not going to do The panic has really set in, folks, for them. It really has. They are, they honestly don't get it. They seriously do not get it. And I got some things about that tonight in terms of stuff that is already occurring in some cases, and other things that it's definitely some really good news that's going on here. But first, before I get going on tonight, I've got Judge Wild on deck. That's right, Judge, you are up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So for those of you who are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and place your hand over your heart and join in with Judge Wild in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh yeah, hoorah!
All right, Judge Wild, thank you very much for submitting that version, that very rousing rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your version of the Pledge of Allegiance played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style. And once you have that done, attach that to an email address, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And you, too, will have your voice saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll put it in the rotation with everybody else. Fantastic things going on. All right, tonight's sponsor is TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. TGRN. Right now we have TGRN Blues, but as you heard here on the program with the interview from Jonathan Oogie Richards, coming in January 2025, we will be adding rock to that rotational schedule. So what we will have is a blues rock mix coming to TGRN Blues. Well, it'll be renamed. It's going to get renamed, rebranded. We're coming out with a fantastic setup. The existing shows, as I understand it, are still going to be there. So, for an example, like My News, I believe, listened to my buddy Oogie on his Sunday Porch to Pew, Oogie's Sunday Groove, I think is what it's called. But his Porch to Pew setup at 8 a.m. Eastern time on Sundays. You can catch that, and you can get basically covered from there. We have fantastic on-air personalities. We've got more coming. It is all going to be all brand new, let me tell you. TGRN rock, TGRN blues meshing together into, I'm not even sure what the name is going to be, but but there you go. So listen through tgrn.net. You can listen right through your browser, or you can download our app from there, as well as you can listen in on either any one of these apps, Live 365, Odyssey, AUDACY, or the iHeartRadio app. You can find us in their catalog of digital radio stations. Listen to TGRN, True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. We are really excited about that. And no, Mark, it's not, unfortunately. Amazon Music doesn't take live feeds like what we do. So it's not on Amazon Music at the moment. So anyway, there you go. All right. Enough of that. Let's get things started off with a little bit of bad news. Well, depending upon how you look at it, it could be bad news. So here, hopefully this works, because when I was trying it earlier, it didn't show up properly, but there, oh, yep, there we go. Perfect. So here in Breitbart, apparently Biden over this weekend decided to approve long-range missile strikes in Russia before Trump comes to power. Now, keep in mind, this headline is kind of masking what actually happened. It doesn't mean that Biden is telling Zelensky, yeah, go and launch into Russia. Okay, that isn't what that is. What it was is that Biden was saying, hey, we don't want to give you anything really long range because you don't need to be launching attacks on Russia. You just need to defend your territory. We'll give you what you need to defend your territory, but that's about it. And then we started giving him, and keep in mind, he was saying too for a very long time, no, we're not going to give you F-16s. We're not going to give you, tanks or anything like that. Well, then that got flipped, and we started handing, or some of the NATO allies started handing over some of that harder and much more offensive hardware. And by offensive, I don't mean offensive in the left wing media. I mean offensive, meaning attacking hardware. But anyway, one of the things that Biden was telling Zelensky is, hey, we're not going to give you anything long range because you don't need to be going after that. Well, he decided to lift that. Now, there's two camps, schools of thought here. One is the most obvious one, which is, yeah, Biden on his way out is flipping Trump the bird and saying, go ahead and clean this up, you bastard. But the other school of thought is that Biden is now basically setting the stage to force Putin and really Zelensky, honestly, to come to the table. By doing this and being, open about it, he is essentially saying, hey, we need to end this. And depending upon which camp you actually sit in, and depending upon whether or not you actually look at that and kind of say, well, this is really sort of pushing toward World War III. I don't think it is. And part of the reason why I say that I don't think it is because Zelensky also came out a little shortly after this announcement by Biden and basically said, hey, this doesn't mean we're going to use them. I mean, not in so many words, but he pretty much kind of said, hey, I just want to have the capability. It's sort of like the idea of, peace through strength, which, believe it or not, is what Trump is looking for. So I don't know if this is necessarily something that was coordinated. I suppose it could be, but realistically, in the long long run, long scheme of things, I sort of think this might be a move to kind of push Putin into the corner and essentially tell him, look, you need to come to the table and we need to end this. So we'll kind of have to see how it plays out, because as with any kind of move like this, there really isn't an assured, unless you really in the chess match, unless you really have the king cornered, there really isn't an assured way to kind of do this. But I think that Putin, honestly, is starting to come under a little bit of pressure here, because for those of you that may not have paid attention to some of the other headlines and things that have come out, Europe is starting to lean on and look toward the U.S. to help them out with especially their natural gas, which, as you recall, was sort of the start of all this because of the whole Nord Stream 2 pipeline and, you know, natural gas flowing into Europe from Russia, you know, the whole Trump getting mad at Germany and telling Germany, you know, you guys can't be dependent upon Russia at the same time defending against him, so on and so forth. You know, geopolitical scenarios over there are very complicated, just like any place else really in the world. And honestly, I think it's like, I really think this is sort of positioning again to sort of say, hey, look, we want you guys to get off the highway. So we're going to give you an off-ramp, which is something that Biden was not doing. Biden literally for the last, 3 years, 4 years that Zelensky and Putin have been going after each other, he basically hasn't really given them any kind of direction. In a way, he's sort of been sitting there telling them, yeah, you two just keep going at it. Kind of like the two bullies in the schoolyard. You know, they're both going at it. They're both beating each other up. And even though the teacher would love to step in, they don't, because they just sort of like, yeah, let's just see if these two can work this crap out. So I am of the camp that, yeah, this might be a move to sort of push Russia, Putin in particular, to basically say, hey, you need to come to the table. So we'll just have to see how this works out. But I'm kind of in the mood, or kind of in the feeling that might be the case. Because again, keep in mind, Trump did say, once he becomes president, he can end this war in 24 hours. Okay? All right. So, sorry about that. I had to take a drink. All right. Well, we are already seeing even more effects of Trump being elected president. Now, don't let the headlines or any of the false propagandists on all of the outlets, because I've seen this all, they're all saying, oh no, Trump, 50%, he lost 50% of his, of the vote. He didn't get 50%, so there's no mandate. Bull crap, people. He's still ahead, by the way, by about 2.5 million votes. Rough numbers, but 2.5 million votes. And California is still counting. I can't figure out why or how, but they are. Also, too, keep in mind as well that Pennsylvania, apparently, now there's lawsuits and stuff in Pennsylvania for that obvious loss by Bob Casey over there, which, in fact, I actually saw one of his tweets on X, or his posts on X. First time I've ever seen one, and he was like, I'm going to keep fighting. And I just basically said, dude, you lost. Give it up. But the ramifications of this Trump victory, and again, keep in mind, it doesn't really matter about the popular vote, because that doesn't vote the president anyway, even though it's a great indicator, I guess, of what the public wants. But the key here, though, to understand is that Trump has a mandate. We gave him the House and the Senate both. Or I should rephrase myself. We kept the House, and we gave him the Senate. And the point here is that the American people want the Trump that is going to go in and burn things down. That's what they want, people. That's what the American people have wanted. We wanted it. And guess what? It looks like we're starting to get it. So here in the Daily Fetched, there's a article. Not really all that interested in the title of the article, but I mean, let's be honest, it sounds pretty cool. Trump's presidency could bankrupt already failing legacy news outlets. And that isn't the point here, realistically. I grabbed the article because it caught my eye, but really what's more important is one thing that the writer, Jason Walsh, put in to the article. And essentially, it's this. If you'd read any of the President-elect Donald Trump's books, you'll know that he doesn't take attacks lightly, whether in business, politics, or attempts to smear him and his family. In other words, and I'm sidebarring here, in other words, he loves to win. That's what he loves. He loves to win. Okay? But here's the thing, and this is just an so apropos example of what's going on. So in the piece, Jason throws in, to quote Christopher Walken from the 2002 film Pool Hall Junkies, they've got this lion. He's the king of the jungle. Huge mane, out to here. He's laying down under a tree in the middle of Africa. He's so big, he's so hot, he doesn't want to move. Now, the little lion comes. They start messing with him, biting his tail, biting his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him, coming over, making trouble. Still nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this and they start to move in. Jackals, hyenas, barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer, bolder and bolder, until one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody. Runs like the wind, eats everything in his path, 'cause every once in a while, the lion has to show that jackals who he is. It's too late to be scared. It's time to kill. Now, folks, that is a clear representation of where we are at with this whole scenario in terms of this situation here. And I'm hearing that there's some audio portion or audio issues on some of the, I would suggest maybe a reboot or a reset. Is there anybody else having problems with the audio? Okay, Facebook is fine from Tommy. So, all right, so that's cool. Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate that, Tommy, for that. Okay, so it looks like it's centered on Rumble. So maybe if Rumble can refresh. Maybe if Rumble can refresh. All right. So let me continue on here. So the piece, he continues on and he basically says that Americans elected Trump for a reason. And the reason being is because of the fact that that's what we wanted. We want the Trump that is the bull in the china shop. We want him to come in. Everybody who voted for him, we pretty much knew, okay? We pretty much knew that this kind of situation was essentially going to be the case. I mean, in a way, some of us, and I won't say all, but some of us have kind of been like waiting for this to happen. Because realistically, he has no chains that are binding him down right now. He's got the House. He has the Senate. He has no worry about getting reelected because he won't be able to run again. He is basically wide open. He can do pretty much whatever he's looking for. And that's exactly what's going on at the moment. Because right now, there are so many things going on. So Trump is apparently, according to this piece, has his lawyer sending letters to people in terms of those in the media. For an example, he sent a letter to the New York Times and Penguin Random House demanding $10 billion in damages for false and defamatory statements. That letter highlights two stories by Buther, whoever that is, and Craig related to their new book, Lucky Loser, How Donald Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success. It also mentions an article by Baker titled For Trump, A Lifetime of Scandals Heads Toward a Moment of Judgment, as well as an October 22nd article by Schmidt titled As Election Nears, Kelly Warns Trump Would Rule Like a Dictator. He has a 6-page complaint that he's filed with the FEC alleging that the Washington Post made illegal in-kind contributions to Harris's campaign over promoted stories. On November 5th, lawyers for Trump's campaign, co-chief Chris LaCivita, however that's pronounced, sent a letter to the Daily Beast alleging that they lied about him raising $22 million to help Trump win an election. He actually only raised, 19.2 or whatever it was, and forced the Daily Beast to add an editor's note to the article. It's also continued to basically, he sued CBS, or he is suing CBS for $10 billion for editing its 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris to make her sound coherent. The letter noted that the 60 Minutes deceptive actions caused immense harm to Trump and his campaign. So, yeah. And CNN, of course, is like crashing and failing. They're already axing, and I didn't talk about this before, but they're already axing star personalities in the face of rapidly failing ratings as millions of Americans change over and opt to get their news from X or independent news outlets. He's already starting to make an impact, and he hasn't even stepped into the Oval Office yet. But this is the kind of Trump that we wanted. Furthermore, this in the Epic Times, Trump confirms he's prepared to declare a national emergency to initiate mass deportations. Now, obviously, mass deportations was a major part of his election campaign, but he now apparently confirmed on November 18th that he will declare a nationwide emergency to carry out mass deportations of illegal immigrants, a move he frequently proposed while on the campaign trail. Now, Tom Fitton, who is the head of the conservative legal group Judicial Watch, wrote in a November 9th post on the social media platform Truth Social that he had heard reports that Trump was prepared to declare the national emergency and to use to use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program. On Monday, Trump apparently reposted his remark, Fitton's remark on True Social, responding with true. So, yeah, we are going to get the Trump that we wanted. Now, of course, he added former ICE director Tom Homan to become his, quote, border czar and help initiate the plan. And Homan and J.D. Vance both have indicated in interviews that the incoming Trump administration will prioritize deporting criminal illegal immigrants immediately. So, yeah. So in a Fox News interview earlier this month, Homan said he would prioritize public safety threats and national security threats and increase workplace inspections for illegal immigrants. He says worksite operations have to happen, he said. Where do we find most victims of sex trafficking and forced labor trafficking? At work sites. They're all going all in. That's what they're doing, is they're going all in. Well, Tom Homan, is it named Tom? I missed it. Hold on. I said Tom Homan. Yeah, it is Tom Homan. I was right. I got confused because I had Tom Fitton and Tom Homan both on my mind. Tom Homan, of course, is going to get a lot of help, according to Tom Homan. Tom Homan, here in the Western Journal, Tom Homan has apparently said that there are thousands of retired border agents and military servicemen who are volunteering to help the incoming Trump administration's planned mass deportations of illegals. Homan shared the news during an appearance on Fox and Friends on Monday. So, yeah, he said, quote, I shut my phone off Friday night because I couldn't handle the phone calls, the texts, the emails from thousands of ICE agents and Border Patrol agents excited about the rumor I'm coming back. He says, but more important than that, thousands of retired agents, retired Border Patrol agents, retired military want to come in a volunteer capacity to help this president secure the border and do a deportation operation. Folks, yeah, we're getting the Trump that we wanted. We're getting him, and I don't know of anybody really that's feeling bad about that. I know I'm not feeling bad about it. Well, Homan apparently now he's been taking a lot of fire from a lot of people, governors, Congress, and apparently even the Congressional Hispanic Caucus chair says that the group itself is going to oppose mass deportations. Homan essentially just answered, game on. This guy is great. I think this guy is perfect. So during a Saturday appearance on Fox News, he was asked about the question with regards to the Congresswoman who chairs the group. And by the way, that group is composed entirely of Democrats. But apparently he was asked about it on it live, and he basically said, game on, and then added, shame on her. Oh, boy, folks, I think there she is. She's right there. That's her. But I seriously think that we are going to get exactly what we want, which is cool. So, yeah, I just, again, people, I don't have any buyer's remorse. I mean, we're almost 2 weeks out. I have no buyer's remorse. And regardless of what everybody is talking about on the socials and talking about all this stuff that's going to happen, you know, there's leftists out there who are basically saying, oh, see, we told you he's going to implement Project 2025. Because there are some people that have been tied to Project 2025 who he is tapping and picking to be some, lower level people. But yeah, they're just like, eh. And speaking of which, Nana reminded me of this. Nana of JJS over on Rumble. She's like, I can't wait for Gates on as AG. Well, this isn't really official yet, but I'm hearing tell from other people, okay, that Gates is Trump's pick. That they have mentioned to Trump a couple of times, hey, you might want to reconsider Gates, some of his quote-unquote advisors. You might want to rethink on the whole Gates thing. And Trump is basically, no, that's who I'm going with. I'm prepared to send him all the way through. Okay? All the way through. And get it. And he is not giving up on Gates, which I think is really good. We'll kind of have to see. And by the way, Mike Johnson's went on the Sunday shows, and he was asked about it, and it didn't quite register to me at first. But apparently, Mike Johnson does have a small part to play in the whole idea of these recess appointments, because apparently both houses have to be in recess in order for those appointments to happen. So Mike Johnson has indicated that he is willing to go along with the whole idea of recess appointments. If that's the case, then folks, we could be looking at some really, really, really good things coming down the pike, for sure. Well, the other thing that got people uproared and upriled and whatever else you want to call it, okay, is the fact that Vivek Ramaswamy has been, making statements that a lot of people don't like, because he has been talking about getting rid of the fat. Now, for those of you that may not be aware, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk have been tapped to co-chair this new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. And so they've been talking, apparently, Elon and Vivek have, and other than making appearances on UFC fights. But the thing about it is that Vivek apparently made a comment that, hey, we could probably cut a bunch of programs. And by the way, if we cut funding, then yeah, there's going to be some cuts to programs. There's going to be some cuts to agencies. They were called. He was called on the carpet apparently in an interview, and they were asking him about, well, what are you going to do if you cut these agencies? And he goes, well, if they're inefficient, they're gone. There's going to be agencies that are just gone. So this is quite interesting, especially considering the fact that we are $36 trillion in debt right now. We have to do something. We have to cut things out, okay? And that's just the way things are. We have to cut things out. This is the time where you tighten the belt, folks. And one of the things is getting rid of spending money that doesn't need to be there. So here in Just the News, there's a think tank, and the think tank is called the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. They actually went and proposed a list of cuts and revenue increases that potentially could save $700 billion. Yes, that's with a B. $700 billion in cuts. Now, here's the thing, though. These cuts could actually get bipartisan support. It's possible that these cuts will actually have Democrats voting for stuff like this. So now we have not only the fact that we have the House, the Senate, and the White House, but we are also, ironically and properly, actually, potentially going to find things where the entire government can be cut on a bipartisan basis. This is crazy. So, according to the report that was put together, again, by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Now, keep in mind, this isn't Doge. This is a think tank that is outside of it, that is part of all of this. But they're preparing for the new term that, of course, is going to focus on taxing and spending policies, including extending the debt limit and possibly the 2017 tax cuts, which they should. But according to the report, not all deficit reduction needs to be contentious. Some of these policies already enjoy broad bipartisan support, or at least they should. In addition to the cuts, the group itself proposed some options for raising revenues without raising taxes. They said on the revenue side, improving tax compliance allows policymakers to raise revenue without raising taxes. Every president from Reagan to Biden, including President Trump, has proposed increasing funding to the IRS and enacting other measures to reduce the tax gap, or the difference between taxes owed and taxes actually collected. Now, side note, there was a report that came out also, too, I didn't grab it, but there was a report that came out that said there are 800 employees of the IRS that actually owe back taxes. Funny how that works. Anyway, the Internal Revenue Service published its projections that the net tax gap after enforcement actions fell from $617 billion in 2021 to $606 billion in 2022. Now, the IRS projects that taxpayers owed $4.6 trillion in tax liability in 2022, and about $3.9 trillion of that was paid on time without penalty. Enforcement actions and late payments led to an additional $90 billion in collections. Most of this tax gap comes from individual income taxes, which accounted for 74% of the gross tax gap in 2022. Of this amount, underreporting of income accounted for 74%, most of which came from underreported business income, $194 billion, and non-business income, $87 billion. So, yeah. I know it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound good, but, cleaning up the Internal Revenue Service, which, again, keep in mind, there's an easy way to solve this, people, in terms of the taxes. As far as taxes are concerned by themselves, there's an easy way to solve this. Clean up the tax code. Get rid of all these freaking, if you do this and that and the other thing, you can do that and this and the other. No, just clean it up. The tax code itself, and even Vivek Ramaswamy talked about this, the tax code itself is incredibly overburdened. There is thousands of pages in the tax code. And wow. It's just not one of those things that anyone with a sense could be able to go and anyway. So it's not just this entire, situation there in terms of Doge. There are other think tanks that are going around and proposing spending and spending cuts and so on and so forth, just to give you an idea of some of the things that they are talking about in terms of deficit reduction. And this I'm telling you, this is where some of the leftists are really getting all hot and bothered. So again, this is from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Executive Spending Authority. So here, you remember that whole student loan thing? Which, by the way, that is unconstitutional. I don't care what anybody says. that is unconstitutional. But here's the thing. If they were to limit executive authority to unilaterally forgive student loans, that would be a savings of $30 billion. Limit the executive power to increase agricultural subsidies, that would give you $10 billion. There's healthcare spending has got a bunch of stuff in here that they suggest that could get taken out. Mandatory spending is another one that could get taken out and increase. There's user fees and asset sales. They've got, extend the FCC spectrum auctions. There's $70 billion right there. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. Anyway, there's a whole list. If you want to go take a look, it's in the show notes. But yeah, these are just some of the suggestions that are out there. And this is exactly what that Doge is supposed to be looking at, is all of this. Needs to focus on this, on all of this. Well, it's not just spending, it's not just immigration, it's not just any of that, but it's also the military that Trump is looking at too. Okay? And in particular, he is really not happy over the fact that Biden took his withdrawal from Afghanistan, his whole idea and everything, and Biden screwed it all up and killed servicemen in the process. Well, that apparently has chapped Trump's hide because of the fact that he now has a team that is targeting military officers involved in the Afghanistan withdrawal. So he apparently is got some people. The transition team is reportedly compiling a list of key military officers involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. And they're looking at potential court-martials or possibly some other penalties that are there. The team is investigating whether to convene a commission to examine the withdrawal effort, including whether any actions on the part of these officials rose to the level of treason or other criminal charges. This is according to NBC. Two sources told the news outlet that the team could potentially recall membership or members of leadership to active duty and possibly charge them with various offenses. A person with the knowledge of the plan said, quote, "It's not clear the Trump administration would actually pursue treason charges and instead could focus on lesser charges that highlight the officer's involvement." So the commission itself is reportedly going to look into how the United States first invaded Afghanistan and how it eventually withdrew its military forces from the region. Sources told NBC News that Matt Flynn, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Counter Narcotics and Global Threats, would be heading up the investigation. Now, this has already been denied by Flynn through his attorney. Flynn's lawyer said that his client has nothing to do with the Trump transition team and that no one has sought out Mr. Flynn's views on this hypothetical legal scenario. Now, he is possibly pushing. Now, I personally think he needs to get rid of any of the upper level management across the board. I'm talking completely across the board, because we cannot leave any mid or senior level management that is completely entrenched in the blob known as the deep state. In order to get things taken care of, we need to revamp and start fresh and start new. And that is exactly why Trump is picking the people that he's got, because that's their intention. That's their goal. That's their focus. especially over the course of the next 2 years, is to go in and take care of all of them. Okay? Boy, let's see. Where is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Apparently my chat is going nuts. So there you go. All right. So one thing that came out, and by the way, you know that whole situation where we were talking not too long ago, by the way, not too long ago. Oh, let me answer this really quickly. So Tommy is asking, Whiskey, why is the number of 180 days to get stuff done being pushed so hard? Well, here's the thing, Tommy. We only have up until the midterm elections. A president's term, yes, is 4 years, as Buddy points out. Buddy points out that a president's term is 4 years. That is correct. However, we do have midterm elections coming up in 2026. So realistically, if you figure recesses, breaks, Christmas break, those kinds of things, you're going to end up with only about 180 days before the midterm elections come up. And unless the American patriots and conservatives show back up again in 2026, there is a possibility that we could change the power in either the House, the Senate, or both. Okay? So that's why. That's why we constantly are talking about only having about 150, 180 days, whatever it is. So it's a short bit of time. Oh my gosh. Coco, that is going to have to be a conversation sometime. You're going to have to explain to me what I missed in that. Sorry, folks. That was it. Sidetrack. There we go. All right. So back to the show. Oh my gosh. Anyway, back to the show. So remember not too long ago that we were talking about how the FBI was having challenges actually giving stats. Like the FBI was putting out these numbers because they went and they changed the way that things are counted. They changed the way that things are described, and it could and they also had several reporting agencies that couldn't catch up to it, couldn't make the changes in time, and so you had the Biden administration running around saying, "Oh yeah, crime is down, crime is down, crime is down." But I showed you here on the program, and several other people have showed you on their programs, that was all crap. Okay? That it was all crap. Well, now we have one of my favorite websites, by the way, Just the Facts Daily, because they don't put a spin on stuff like this. They just give you literally just the facts. All right? And here's the thing. Just the facts. The FBI's Biden-era murder estimates are far below the number of homicides recorded on death certificates. Yeah. So they basically went through and took a look at the Bureau of Justice Statistics and explains that the United States uses two national data collection systems to track detailed information on homicides. These consist of death certificates collected by the states and compiled by the CDC, and also reports by local law enforcement agencies compiled by the states and aggregated by the FBI, which also generates estimates for agencies that don't report. We also have that other third-party evaluation of crime statistics that captures or attempts to capture non-reported crime that, of course, still occurs. All right. Now, what ended up happening here is they went back and found that the FBI, the Biden DOJ actually, went back and modified the counts of death certificates and the FBI counts themselves. Now, they inexplicably revised these numbers all the way back to 2003. Now, that doesn't seem to make any sense, but that's what they say, is that they did it. And all of a sudden, these elevated counts raising certain years by up to 7%. The FBI made these unprecedented alterations without so much as a footnote to inform the rest of us, the public. Now, you can take a look at this graph that I have on the screen. The biggest thing that you can see here is it starts in 2003. There's no bar. And that's because 2003 wasn't really changed. But yet, all of a sudden, Biden's DOJ added all of these numbers, okay, and statistics based off of death certificates that listed the word homicide as the cause of death. Now, this chart is specifically showing you the gap between what FBI counted as murders for that particular year and the total number of death certificates that had the word homicide listed as the cause of death. Now, if you look at this chart, you're going from, like, for an example, I'm just going to pick a random number. In 2013, there were an additional 1,800 homicide certificates issued that the FBI did not have as part of their murder list. Okay. Now, what's really telling in all of this, and that isn't even the worst. What's really telling in all of this is when you get to the years of the Biden administration. And if you're on the audio portion of the program, I highly suggest you head on over to rumble.com, take a look at the video. You can fast forward to this spot when I start showing you this chart. You can take a look at this chart, and all of a sudden, from the Trump era to the Biden era, oh my gosh, there is a clear jump in the graph, in the bars. In fact, in 2021 alone, there is over 4,500 certificates of death that listed homicide as the cause of death that the FBI was not reporting. People, this particular, thankfully, there's a reason for all of this. It's stuff like this that has caused the American public to decide, you know what? We're done with all of the corruption. We're done with all of the scandals. We're done with all of this stuff. We want it all cleaned up. And the tool that we are going to use is essentially going to be Donald Trump. But we're giving him some help. And we gave him the Senate, and we returned the House to him intact. That's the whole point here, people. The American people wanted Trump. They want that bull in the china shop. They want the man who's going to go in and clean house and get things taken care of. Here's another thing of further evidence of all this. You know, the whole leftist idea that they want, oh, yeah, your child, 6 years old, 5 years old, 4 years old, whatever, they decide, oh, yeah, you know what? I was born a girl, but I want to be a boy. Or I was born a boy and I want to be a girl. And they go through this whole thing. They do the whole puberty blockers. They do, all of these different things. Well, guess what? You know how the left was sitting there and talking about, oh, no, this is common practice. People want this. it's definitely going to be the latest and greatest, the brand new thing, right? Because, they live in their echo chambers and they think that stuff like this is normal. Well, here, the Daily Signal writes this: number of Americans who want to outlaw child sex changes spikes. So, there was a survey done by the Neapolitan News Service, and it was a poll, and apparently almost 3/4 of voters say that it should be illegal to subject children to transgender medical interventions. The percentage of voters who surveyed who oppose child sex changes, which include so-called puberty blockers, hormone regimens, and irreversible surgeries, increased by 10 points since the previous August. The majority of those is in both political parties. So not just Republicans are saying this. This is both political parties that are doing this. They oppose allowing minors to attempt to change their gender. The poll found that 72% of Americans who oppose child gender transitions, man, I'm having a hard time getting that out. Child gender transitions includes 86% of Republicans and 58% of Democrats. The survey was of 1,000 registered voters and it was conducted online just this past Wednesday by veteran pollster Scott Rasmussen. The margin of error in this is plus or minus 3.1 percentage points. Voters said one of the top reasons they didn't vote for Vice President Kamala Harris was that she was, quote, too focused on cultural issues rather than helping the middle class, according to a polling from the Democratic research group Blueprint. Folks, we are now in a position where we are winning the culture war, and this is this is the administration, this is the position that the American voters wanted to be in. We want to get rid of this. We want to get rid of this ideology. We want to get rid of all of this crap. Now, also, according to the Neapolitan News Service, 68% of voters surveyed said that they think public schools shouldn't teach lessons on radical gender ideology. Less than 20% said that they think lessons about changing genders should be taught in schools. See, this is the reason why we want to get rid of the Department of Education. This is the reason why all of the changes that Trump was recommending and talking about on his whole entire campaign, this is the administration that we wanted. So all of you lefties out there who are sitting here talking about, oh my gosh, all you Trumpsters, they're all going to be, you're going to be sorry once you get what you wanted. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're going to enjoy what we got. 2 weeks out. And, yeah. I am definitely not having any kind of buyer's remorse at this point. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And make sure that once you do get signed in, search up the American Perspective channel, and of course, hit that green follow button to be notified every time that I go live. Also, too, before you take off, make sure you hit those thumbs up and like buttons. Those help elevate these videos for others to go ahead and peruse. We will see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. And before I take off, I just want to point out, Nana, I've been thinking about that. A Whiskey Musings Bourbon Trail trip. For those of you who are new to the program, this program used to be called Whiskey Musings. So anyway, we'll see what we can do. I'll try and figure that out. But anyway, make sure you hit those thumbs up. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.